Hi, I'm Kath, and this is a series of conversations about things that I think are really important with a bunch of people that I'm inspired by, and I hope you enjoy them as much as I enjoyed having them.
Hi, my name is Mantshologane Maile. I'm a 20-year-old non-binary actor, and my pronouns are they, them.
Hello.
Hi.
Welcome to In Conversation with Kath. I'm so excited to have you here today. You're an actor and a drag king, which I am obsessed with. I think it's the coolest thing ever. So first off, I would love to know what gender means to you.
Honestly, it means all and nothing.
Yeah.
Gender for me, I personally don't resonate with it. I identify as non-binary.
Yeah.
So I like to exist outside of the structured binary. You have male, we have female, and then we have a middle ground. For me, the middle ground doesn't even fit or work.
Yeah.
And so far from that, it's just a presence in me. I resonate with a soul in the body, not a gendered body. And it wasn't until I probably reached the age of 12 when I started to discover that a binary existed.
Yeah.
And then it was my mission to deconstruct it for myself, whether that was rebelling to one end of it or going to the complete opposite end of it. And then as I got older, really actually coming and living in Sydney, I discovered that I didn't want to sit on the binary at all.
Yeah.
And that I don't think it should exist, except for those who want it to exist and then resonate with a gender specifically.
And need it to exist for
and
other
need it
reasons.
to exist for that affirmation for them. But for me, nah.
Yeah. I suppose speaking, not necessarily of gender, but I mean, I saw, like we've said before, you do drag king, and I was just wondering, was that sort of something for you that came about politically or just for fun? Is it a way that you can kind of express your views on gender, or is it just something completely different and it's just sort of performative and fun? And how did that sort of come about for you?
I mean, it's still new.
Yeah.
I'm still a bit of a baby king. I haven't debuted anywhere. I'm still like in the works, forming him, but it's an outlet.
Yeah.
Kind of like a fuck you in a political sense, but also it's very affirming and freeing for me. Yeah. Drag kings don't have the same representation as drag queens do. Yeah. Today, the drag king culture is still, under the clubs, under the rocks, it's still brewing, but there's so much creativity and limitless talent in it for queer women, not women, non-binary folks. Yeah. I think I'm still trying to figure out, well, I'm not trying to figure out why. I know why, because it feels good.
Yeah.
But I think it's more fun. It's performative.
What sort of made you, not necessarily decide, but become interested in doing drag king, even if it is just for fun? Like you said, it's kind of like a new thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what sort of sparked your interest?
Actually, when I was younger, I mentioned that I used to I discovered the gendered binary, and then I made it my mission to exist on one spectrum of it, which for me was hyperfemininity. Yeah. And then as I got a little older, existing on the opposite end again, which was quite masculine traits. And it was through my femininity and expression of that I fell in love with painting my face glamorously, like a 1940s movie star. I love to block out my brows and put on thin strips and paint my lips large, and there was such a beauty in that, a beauty that wasn't gendered though. It was art. It was art. Yeah. And it spoke for itself. Yeah. And as I sort of grew up and tried to even distance myself further from associating myself with a woman or being a woman, I fell in love with painting. It's like the merriment of identifying as non-binary and then painting a gendered feminine face on me, and then the sort of fuck you of it's not a feminine face, it's my face and how I'm choosing to paint, how I'm choosing to wear it. Yeah. So that's where I fell in love with it, trying to marry all of that joy of painting my face when I was younger into the gender fluidity in which I sit in today, which is, I can strap my chest, paint on abs, chisel myself and define myself through these masculine features, and then put sparkles on him, or paint a bolder lip, or wear a heel with a ripped stocking.
I was just wondering what sparked your interest as well, like in the arts. What made you want to be an actor? Was that something that since you were little? Did it come later?
Very little.
Yeah.
I was 9 years old. I remember the story very vividly. I was 9 years old and was at a country school in Cadelba, which is a little rural country town located probably 7 hours north of Brisbane City. And our entire cohort was made up of 90 students between grades 1 to grade 7. And yeah, it's tiny, absolutely tiny. And our teacher wrote a play for the grade 6 and 7 to finish the year with. And it was a rendition of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, but Snow White and the Eight Dwarfs, the untold story by grade 6s and 7. And I got to play the evil queen. And it was my first look or feel into acting. I remember as a kid, you always watch, cartoon programs, you watch televised programs, you watch your favorite films. But I always thought the people behind the screen were some kind of magical creature. I didn't understand how that kind of worked or the language of that. And it was the first time I performed to an audience. And I understood or felt the difference between having a monologue or having a piece of poetry, performing it for yourself or performing it and learning it and understanding it, debunking or pulling apart a text, and then sharing that with a wider audience. I'd never engaged in that before. That dynamic, that connection.
It's magic.
It was absolute magic.
Yeah.
I was delivering this monologue about scragging Snow White's guts and sending the huntsman off. These people were laughing and having a response, and I was like, oh. And it's not to me, Ghani, it's to the character that I'm playing. They're either resonating or they're having some kind of response. If I can pull that out of people as a job that I'm also gaining such joy in, well, then I think I found what I'm going to do for the rest of my life.
Yeah, wow.
And 2 weeks later, I was in my first drama class and stayed with that studio in Bundaberg for a decade. And I've seen it through my entire life.
Yeah, so it's since then.
Since
always,
9 to now 21.
Yeah.
And it was my motivation to get out of that town and get myself here into this big old city and get into a degree and take this where I want to take it.
Speaking of acting, as a non-binary person of colour, how does it make you feel in an industry that can be so whitewashed? And from your opinion, what would you like to see change, or where do you see or wish to see the future?
I would like to see the future of the industry centred on Black, trans women of colour, people of colour. I want to see Australia's industry putting our First Nations voices to the forefront.
Absolutely.
That's what I want to see. I want to see BIPOC in the industry. I don't see it right now.
Do you feel like that sort of motivates you as well? Makes you want to dive into the industry maybe more to
and be even more vocal
in
what it is I stand for, and because there's power in this voice, there's power in all these trans bodies that are behind me as well, and what we're fighting for, and what we're fighting for isn't actually a lot. It is representation, it's acceptance, and I want to be at the forefront of that.
Yeah,
I am that, and I want to use that to. I don't know if I can open up more doors for people behind me, if we can help pioneer this. I think it's not a time to be quiet. I want to be loud.
Totally, because I did actually see, I think it was yesterday, you and Zoe did a live, and at one point in the interview discussion, you were actually talking about representation in the industry, especially when it comes to trans people, and you were talking about how when it is seen, when we do see it now, it's usually in a villain sort of way.
It's villainized, or it's mocked, or it's made to be felt like we don't exist, or that our existence is based on mental illness, and that is so
not
false.
The story. It's not the story. Yeah,
we are human.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah. You're also quite the animal activist, from what I've heard and seen, which is great. And I suppose I would like to know, why is that important to you, or when did it become important to you, and why? And what do you maybe wish people knew more about when it came to animal rights and caring more about the planet?
I'm only very recent in my veganism. I became a vegan February last year. I met somebody who asked a question that I didn't actually have an answer to, and that made me change my entire thinking. They asked me the question, do you drink cow's milk? And I was like, yeah. And they're like, why? I was like, I got nothing. So I had to go back and investigate. And I didn't actually have a justifiable enough answer why I was drinking something that was not mine to take or not mine to ingest. That it was, I went through this whole process. And then I found the most important thing, which is I think something that makes me very adamant in this, and something I think, what you said before, something I wish people knew more of, and that it's speciesism. Yeah. That there is actually no distinction between us, human folk, and the animals and creatures that inhabit the earth with us. And if you can justify for yourself that there is a difference and that you are superior, then go and question yourself and bring yourself back down to ground level, because you're not. Yeah. We are not superior.
To end on, I'd like to know, what do you wish the world would know more about? If there's one thing that you want someone to take home from this conversation, anything.
I remember being a kid and not having representation, not being able to look to something that was filmed, look to a conversation like we're having right now. So if anyone's to take anything, it is to look at me as I am today in all of the adversity that the world throws at me. We push through, we can come through. And to that other kid who is very similarly to me, sitting at home being like, there's no place for me in the world, I guarantee you there is. And I'm finding mine, and they'll find theirs too.